Well, this is the first pillar of mastery, drawing. You've probably heard many tattooists say that in order to tattoo, you have to know how to draw. It applies to any tattooing style.
Vou deixar
You
aqui,
first
Zé.
need
Não
to
pega
know
não.
how to draw so that you can tattoo. That's not entirely true for some styles. There are tattoos that you can master and dedicate yourself to make it without knowing how to draw, although I don't recommend it. But what about realism? Is it possible? Can you tattoo it without knowing how to draw? Let me tell you something. If almost all tattooists say that you have to know how to draw to be a tattooist, and they're probably right. I've realized that many times my students think that's what everyone says. They downplay it when in reality it's crucial. In fact, drawing as a mastery of section is not really about the action of drawing itself. When we talk about drawing, we mean the ability to understand an image and then know how to reproduce it. That's where methodology and technique come into play. But first, what's most important is to understand, to know it, that when you see an image, you know what composes it, so you can reproduce it. I don't care how you make it, be it with watercolors, with pencil, which is quite usual. I don't care if you make it on an iPad or directly as a tattoo. In realistic tattooing, which is what we're learning, we don't want to make it like old or new school tattooists, since they make up things and that's something that many styles make. But us, we want to avoid it. What we need to know is how to replicate an image just by looking at it and be able to analyze it, or thanks to some tools that I'll show you during the course, we need to be able to find its components as if it was a building, whether the beams, bricks, cement, the main structure. In this case, it would be the lines, shadows, fills, saturations, dots, details, where the white highlights should go. How are you going to be able to apply them correctly with a perfect technique if you don't know their place, where they should go, and in which order? It's absolutely impossible. If you don't know how to do this correctly, finding the lines, shadows, fills, saturations, dot work, and white highlights, it doesn't matter if I give you the answer, or if you learn everything from a technical standpoint. Which pressure, voltage, needle you should use, it doesn't matter. You won't know how to do it. You'll have the right materials and the knowledge of how everyone else tattoos, but you won't know how to do it yourself. In the methodology lessons, I'll show you some tips so that you can analyze images through Photoshop or iPad apps, so that you can understand how I analyze them and what I observe specifically to find all these parts. This can help you at first, give you some hints, and also help you train the eye. It's fascinating because we're obviously not born knowing everything, but you have to know that at some point of your career, you should be able to find all these elements without the support of technology, just by looking at the image. It's quite simple. What you should ask yourself when you find yourself in front of a reference image doesn't depend on whether it's from a client, or you want to apply it onto artificial skin, or you want to use it as a design later on. What you ask yourself is, do I know how to draw it? Would I know how to draw it with pencil and paper? Just by asking yourself these questions, many doubts can arise. I've confirmed this by asking my students how they draw a portrait. For example, and many fail to reach an agreement. I'd make this hair with lines, or I'd start with the fills and then shade it. I realized they don't know how to draw it. Or they may know how to draw, but they aren't sure if it's going to turn out well on paper. So, draw it. And why do I recommend that you do it with pencil? Besides being the traditional method that most people know, paper and pencil are usually at our disposal, or the very cheap materials. Plus, it doesn't bleed or complain or has a time limit, unlike skin. We can do it at any time of the day, at any moment. We can stop and continue another day. We can slow down or go faster. We can do whatever we want. You're totally free while drawing with pencil and paper. And this is the most significant difference. You can make mistakes without risks. One of the main traits of tattooing are the risks, which cause us to be scared, but you shouldn't be scared while drawing on paper. What difference does it make? Nobody's watching, so make 25 mistakes and maybe on the 26th time, you make it right. It doesn't matter. But what's most important, if you have any questions about if you know how to draw that hair or an animal, then you draw it and it doesn't look quite right and you can tell that something's wrong, do you really think there's a chance that it'll look good on skin? Many people start tattooing without checking this first, and when it turns out wrong, they ask me, hey, I made a tiger the other day and it didn't turn out well. Can you give me some advice on how to tattoo animal hair? No, don't start from there. Start with the drawing. So, what I usually answer is, do you know how to draw animal hair? Are you completely sure about it? Come, show me. You've shown me a photo of your tattoo. Now show me the drawing from that same photo. Let's see how it looks. You probably can't because you haven't drawn it before, so I always challenge them to do so. That doesn't look good. Now draw it. Let's see if it looks better. That's usually the reason why tattoos don't look right. There are obviously many cases, and a tattoo can look wrong due to technical or methodological mistakes. But usually when a person sends me a photograph of a tiger that doesn't look quite right, the drawing doesn't look good either. So they should practice that pillar, which is the foundation of tattooing, and that's the most important thing. Well, imagine you have another image before you. Let's talk about you, about something that can happen to you. There's an image of a portrait of your client's son before you. It's a well done and well illuminated image. You can tell that you can tattoo it perfectly. You understand that the details meet the needs. The size is correct and you start tattooing it. Ask yourself if you know how to draw it, because normally a family, celebrity or child portrait should look exactly like the reference image. If you draw it without using a rubber or without spending 200 hours or setting a time limit, will it look alike? Will it look the same? If you can't answer that question, you might have to simply draw it beforehand. So, this is an infallible formula. If a question arises, even if it's a small one, draw it simply. Imagine that you draw it and it doesn't turn out right. What should you do? Repeat it. Imagine that you repeat it and still doesn't look good. What should you do? Repeat it. And that's when patience comes into play, like we've said before. If after 4, 5, 6 days, a month, you keep drawing it and still doesn't look right, what should you do? Refuse to do it. Change the idea or the image. For example, some advice I usually give when this happens is to tattoo the image from the side. Tattooing a face from the side is much less risky than tattooing one from the front. So why risk it? If it was so hard to get it right on paper, it would probably not look good on the skin. And this is one of the key conditions about a good realistic tattoo in regards to a portrait that should look exactly like the reference image. So there's no excuse not to practice it beforehand. So at this point, some of you may ask, well, my drawing ability is not great, then what can I do? I've already answered this. It's as easy as drawing. This seminar is focused on tattooists. and on people who know how to tattoo and obviously how to draw, but these can always be improved. In other words, I think that anyone who does or wants to have a realistic tattoo education or already knows how to draw. I'm not saying you don't know, but if after seeing this and learning the importance of drawing, which I can assure you is 60 or 70% of the result of the tattoo, you think you need to improve. On the one hand, drawing is the easiest and cheapest way of practicing. Every night or morning, spend 1 or 2 hours a day with your PC and your phone off so that you can't get distracted. Draw whatever you feel like or something you've been asked to draw for the following week. This way, you'll notice as if by magic, your tattoos will get better. And obviously, if your drawing level is far from what you like, and now you realize how important it is, and you think that you need training, it is obviously a good idea to attend tattoo drawing courses. But be clear about something. If you're lazy with this, I've mentioned this in many face-to-face seminars, like, look, you're doing this seminar with me, asking technical questions, asking me about which needles to use, but what you really need to do is draw. And sometimes people will reply, but I can't be bothered with drawing. What I want to do is to tattoo. Well, if you can't be bothered, you're probably not prepared to be a realism tattooist. Period. So to finish this class, the only thing that you have to know and above all remember is that if you don't master this section, you'll never be able to tattoo realism properly. That's for sure. So we could say that these anecdotes that I've had throughout my career proved to me right. They show me that without the ability to draw, everything else is pointless. So, as a conclusion, and after listening to all of this, if you still have questions about your drawing skills, just check it yourself. After watching this video, pause the course, stop for a moment, and draw. Or simply observe how to do it. Because many times when we started to tattoo or we want to start to tattoo, or when we've been doing it for some time, we forget that we have to keep drawing.
Papai,
Oi.
o aniversário da Zeta vai ser aqui nos fundos?
Vai ser aqui em casa.
Mas aqui nos fundos?
Vai ser em casa, assim, a gente vai vir no melhor lugar. Eu que comecei aí, você me encaminhou. Essas duas aqui foi eu que coloquei. E você foi me ajudando. Eu peguei todas essas, as 4.
Você pegou 3, eu peguei essa daqui.
Chumba, louco. Você é a mulher, não pegou pão.
Dá.
O que tá brigando, seu Zé?
Vocês estão frescos? Ligue que a gente brigava com você. A gente tá conversando. A gente tá brigando de jeito.
Vou pegar sozinho.
Então, tá vendo? Eu então, a mãe do Dajão não mexendo nela. Vai montando aí, cara. Procura outras peças.
Mata-mata em equipe. O cheque foi compensado. Vamos trabalhar.
Nossa, mas esse cara já é bom.
Parece que isso aqui
Ai, não. Sim, cara,
Estamos perdendo a luta.
ele tá. Nossa, mas pode ficar ninguém.
Passamos à frente.
Nossa, mas cara. É bom.
Disparando dados sensor.
Ah, tinha um pé de
Zero virtualizador. Sinalizador de inserção tática inimigo ativo. Felicidade. Precisamos de espaço de helicóptero de francotiradores.
sentido.
Chegou uma hora.
Inimigo acima. Aviso. Sinalizador de inserção Mande inimigo acima.
Não, Zé, presta atenção, Zé. Você não conta.
Tático. A gente está fazendo pressão neles. Vem ação. Informação forte na tira. Rastreando helicóptero de frango atiradores inimigos sobrevoando. É agora. Tudo tem consigo. Sinalizador de inserção tática inimigo ativo. Uma invasão de sistema inimiga foi detectada. Seu sistema foi infectado por uma hacker inimiga. Ativando frequência. Mais um dia e mais um prova.
Esse daqui parece que é lá em cima. Tá vendo, ó? Essa daqui, ó, parece aquela parte lá de cima. E essa aqui é a parte de baixo.
Pressionando todas as frequências. Sistemas ativados. É com inteligência que a gente avança. Você já sabe como é que vai ser.
Miguel, você tem que pensar o quê? Isso é um quadrado, não é? Uma parte de volta do quadrado. Como que eu vou fazer aqui? Aqui não tem peça? Entendeu? Tem que caber com o quadradinho. O completo dele.
Mata em equipe. Removam todos os recursos mercenários. Passando à frente. Inimigo abatido. Outrider na batida.
Não pega as peças para lutar. É peça pequena, tem um monte de peça pequena. Peça pequena, pega tudo, cara.
Calma, Miguel. Como você vai montar aqui se você peça de caixa?
Então, pega pequena, lá tem uma coisa pequena. A gente vai estar chamando. Tio, ele, sua mãe, tem uma caixa de cachorro que deu para encaixar de cachorro.
Inimigo abatido.
Você não passa uma coisa. E
3 milagres. Outrider na batida.
Peças só lá. A gente faz para montar essas peças.